Hi guys, thanks for joining me today. I'm Marilyn and my channel is Making with Marilyn. Now I do all things crafty on my channel, but on today's video I'm going to take this tank top t-shirt, I'm going to add some HTV to it, and I'm hoping this will motivate me to start exercising just a little bit. This HTV that I'm going to use is one that I started with when I first started using HTV. I found it on Amazon and I absolutely love it. Now, usually I like Caesar Easy Weed, but I like this so much that I bought some more. So I'm going to use that. I have my Cricut. This is a Cricut maker, but any Cricut would work. I have my computer. I have this lint roller, a Teflon sheet, and then behind me, I have an HTV auto press. Whoops. Now, the first thing that I'm going to do is get on Creative Fabrica, show you my design, pull it into Cricut, get this cut, and then we're going to pick right back up here at the table. Now before I do though, please consider subscribing to my channel. If you do, tap that bell and then select the all notification. That way YouTube lets you know anytime I upload new content. Now this is Creative Fabrica, and I discovered this maybe 2 or 3 years ago, but before I discovered it, designing to me was a major stressor. I started with a trial membership, and honestly, I thought I would cancel it after the first month, which was free, but I have continued it and I love it. So I'm going to go to my profile, down to my downloads, and I'll show you what I found. Now the image that I want to use is in this file. With this file, you get 12 different designs. And despite that I would love to be my own boss, I'm not yet. In less than 2 years when I retire, I will be, but for now I'm not. So I'm going to go with this me versus me. I'm the competition. I've already downloaded it, but when you use this, you would just click download. You'd go to your downloads, and then you'd put the file wherever you want it. I tend to drag mine to my desktop. So let me go ahead and open Cricut Design Space. I'll click on New Project, Upload, Upload Image, and I saved it to my desktop as me versus me. So let me click Browse, and it's right here. So I click on it and say Open. This is an SVG, so there's nothing for me to clean up. I just say Upload. Now that it's in my uploads, I click on it and I say Add to Canvas. All right, so it came in at 9.5 inches wide. That's actually just about the size I want it. I think I'll just leave it at 9.533. Now I do want to see what would it look like if I dragged it taller. So I'm going to unlock this little padlock here. That way I can change the height without affecting the width. So if I made it taller, I think that still looks good. And I think I like it to be a little taller than what it was. Let me back it up and just go with 5.5 inches. You know what? I'm going to go with 6 inches. All right, so there's nothing else for me to do other than to make sure that when I cut this, since I'm using HTV, and this is an HTV that actually comes on a carrier sheet. So there's some pattern HTVs that you have to use masking tape, pull it off and put it back on your shirt. The vast majority of HTV comes on its own carrier sheet. When it does, you go ahead and mirror your image before you cut it. There's 2 ways I could do that. I could either go ahead and say to flip it horizontal now, then I don't have to remember to cut it in the mirrored image, but let me show you how you do that as well. So let's go back to having this in the normal view, and I'm going to go ahead and say make. Now let me go back because you can tell this is not the way it looked on the screen. So let's cancel that. I'm going to go ahead and select everything, and then to make sure it cuts exactly like this in my vinyl, I'm going to go right down here to attach and click that. That way everything stays exactly like this when you're ready to cut it. Now I'll say make. And you can see how now me versus me is centered over I'm the competition. Okay, so here's the other way that you can mirror it. You can click right here so that it cuts in the mirrored view. Now, I'm not going to change anything about this image. I love it the way it is, so I'll say continue. I'm going to use the setting Everyday Iron On. I need to make sure I have my fine point blade in, which it is. Now, I always like to take it out and clean it. And the arrow on my Cricut is already flashing. So let me go back to the other camera, put my HTV on my cutting mat, and we'll let this cut out. Now that my Cricut's ready to cut that, let's go ahead and put the HTV down on the cutting mat. Now with this, the shiny side is the carrier sheet. You don't want to cut through the carrier sheet, so that goes face down. If you can't tell which the shiny side is, you can take something like a little weeding tool and you can kind of poke through a little corner of it and see if you can scratch through it. If you can scratch through it, that's probably the vinyl side. But with most HTVs, you can tell which side is the carrier sheet and which side isn't. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this down on my mat. And then I didn't talk about it in the video intro, but if your cutting mat isn't really sticky, mine's pretty good. But if it's not, you can use a brayer and you can press your HTV down and that helps it stick just a little bit better. I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'm ready to load this and cut it. So I'm just going to load it here. And remember, I told you I like to clean my blade, so I'm just going to pull it out, make sure there's nothing on it, and put it right back in. Now when you put it back in, make sure it gets seated all the way down. I made the mistake a couple of times of not doing that, and my material didn't cut. So if you could see it, you could see that this little arrow is flashing. That means you press that and it's ready to load. Now the C's flashing, so it's ready to cut. I'm just going to press this. I'll fast forward and we'll come back. Now that my cut's done, that arrow is flashing again. I push it and it unloads my mat. All right, I'm going to go ahead and move this off my table. I'll be right back. Now what I like to do is I like to go ahead and flip my mat over and then hold down my material. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So I'm holding my material flat and I'm pulling my mat off of it. And then the other thing is I just put this entire sheet on my mat because it's all that was left in that box. If I weeded right now, I would be wasting a ton of HTV, and I don't want to do that. So let me go ahead and cut this out. That way I can keep my scrap piece. All right, be sure and keep all your scraps. They come in really handy, and that's a pretty good sized piece. I could actually probably get another shirt out of this alone. Now, if you've never weeded HTV before, it's typically really easy to weed, and this brand is no exception. So I just pull up on a corner. I just poke through the HTV part. It doesn't go through the backing. If it does, you're pushing too hard. So poke your weeding tool through the corner, lift up, and if you have a good cut and you have good HTV, this is going to come right off. And so I'm just going to pull it off. I'm going to kind of watch in case something tries to lift up that shouldn't lift up. But I have not had any issues with this brand of HTV. Now that I've removed most of the extra HTV, I still need to get some of those centers out. So you can see that doesn't quite look right yet. Give me a minute to do that. Okay, I think I'm done, but I always like to turn it over and look at it and make sure. Oh, I'm missing the center of one of the E's. I left it in. I need to take that out. There you go. Hopefully you can kind of see that. All right, I'm going to go ahead and turn my heat press on. And I put a label on a lot of my HTV packages. And my label says preheat my shirt 2 to 3 seconds. Press it at 300 degrees for 10 to 15 seconds. And this is a cold peel. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on my HTV Ront press, get it up to temperature, set the time, then we're ready to finish up. Now that my heat press is up to temperature, I want to go ahead and pre-press this. Now remember, it said 2 to 3 seconds. I'm going to go ahead and do 15 seconds. Then the second thing that I want to do is I want to go ahead and use a lint roller and just remove any extra fibers that might be on the top of it. Now here's my design. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to have the sides meet up so that when I push right here, I'll just make a crease. That's the center of the design. And then I want to come down about 3 or 4 inches from the neck of this shirt. Now let me get it a little bit straighter than what it was. I'm a little bit picky about my shirts. I don't know that picky is the right word. I'm a little obsessive about how I have my design on there. It's just an issue I have. Okay, that looks pretty good. Let me hold it up so you can see it. I think that looks fine. So now I'm going to go ahead and press this. Again, I'm doing 10 to 15 seconds. I have mine set on 15 seconds, and I can't remember the temperature. 300 degrees. Then remember, it's a cold peel. So I'll let it cool down. I'll peel the carrier sheet off. Then I'm going to put a Teflon sheet on it, and I'm going to press it one more time. Now the hard part, and that is waiting for this to cool down. Now, when I press this, part of this sleeve was under the pad of the press. It's thicker than what the shirt is, and so you're going to get uneven pressure slightly. So when I pull this off, I want to be really careful that if it starts to lift, I put it back under and I press it again. Now I keep a tile in my craft room. You can use a porcelain or a ceramic tile. You can lay it down on your shirt. That pulls that heat out and you don't have to wait as long. Or if you have granite countertops, you can also rub your shirt on that. Okay, that cooled it down just really, really quickly. So let me see if this is going to peel off just fine. And it looks like it is. Now, I had a little piece just pull up. So the apostrophe over the I, that started to pull up. I'm going to investigate further. Okay, most of the rest of it looks fine. There is a little corner of the E, which is up kind of close to this, that's peeling up. One thing about the HTV Ront press is you cannot adjust the pressure. And so I use it for my rhinestones. They're a little thicker. I haven't really used it much for HTV or DTF. If you have a different type of press where you can adjust the pressure, honestly, I kind of prefer that for things like HTV and DTF. But we're going to make this work. Let's go ahead and put my tile back down on it, pull that heat out. This time I'll wait a little bit longer than what I did last time. Okay, it's the moment of truth. Let's see if that worked any better. Oh, it did. All right. My apostrophe stayed down. Everything looks like it's staying down pretty well. Again, I'm going to do one more press just to make sure. But let me show you what it looks like so far. I just think that's such a cute design. Me versus me, meaning I'm my own competition. I don't need to worry about what others look like, how much they weigh, how much money they make. I need to be the best version of me and compete against myself. So I'm going to go ahead and press this one more time, and then we're done. Now, I just realized I have a Teflon cover on the bottom of the platen on my heat press, so I didn't need that Teflon sheet. But if you don't have your press covered with a Teflon sheet, I would suggest using a Teflon sheet so that your vinyl doesn't stick to your platen. Okay, that looks good. I can actually see some of the texture of the shirt through the vinyl, and I love it when you can see that. The thing I really like about this HTV is it is a thin HTV. I cannot stand the thick HTVs that just feel almost plasticky on your shirt. This is a nice thin one. So here's the final product. I love it. I think that's adorable. Hopefully this gives me just a little bit of motivation to move more often, get a little more exercise, and take care of myself. So thanks so much for joining me today, and until my next video, bye-bye.